Check, check. Awesome. So we got Slim up here. Jason's coming up.
We got
and Marty.
Jason, we got Marty Bent. Jason is a first generational rancher from Colorado. I've asked him to come in to be part of the beef initiative. He came in very early. We have Marty Bent. He has TFTC Media Company. He's out of Austin, Texas. He's a transplant from the up northeast. Marty has been instrumental in helping me understand Bitcoin, getting to know the Bitcoin community. We've become very good friends. And so what we're going to do is Charles is going to moderate for us, and we're going to answer some questions and kind of give a story between all of us. And then after that, we're going to have the speakers that come up, and all this is going to be tying together today to where it becomes kind of entertaining. But one thing, it's going to be very rewarding. Charles, take it away.
Thanks, Slim. So, my name's Charles Mayfield. I am not on the marquee. Slim doesn't know me well enough, or he never asked me to moderate anything. I don't do much in moderation, but I think that's probably why we're all here. Just a real quick synopsis of me. I'm a farmer, regenerative farmer. Been talking to Slim now for 6 months,
At least
7
6
months.
Yeah, about that.
And am honored to be here. I've been a little bit of a crazy guy for about 15 years when I got into the paleo scene. So I look at today and I see us bringing a lot of crazy people together in a good way. Whether you're a Bitcoiner or a rancher or a farmer or just someone really looking and seeking food intelligence. If you feel a little crazy in this modern world, you're probably on the right path. And so, with that being said, I really just want to start with opening it up. Why are we here? What is the essence of food intelligence? What's the essence of Bitcoin? What's the essence of ranching? I'll start there, just sort of open that question up, and then Slim, if you don't mind, I'm going to try and tighten us up a little bit on time,
Sure.
Because we've got some great speakers lined up for this afternoon, including you. So
Yeah, fair enough.
So why are we here?
Well, when I first started, in the beginning, like I said, I couldn't start midstream. I had to get somewhere where understanding why are people sick, why are people, not feeling good, why are people desperate for types of medical care, where is all this starting? And it started, I had to understand where our food comes from. And so I was laying in bed one night, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I said, man, I'm going to hashtag this word, this phrase, and it's going to be called food intelligence. And I said, okay, what is food? Do I know what food is? I started asking myself a lot of questions. What do I think is food? Where does that information come from? Is it a marketing plan? Is it from a doctor? Where is it? Well, from my background, I had to understand what the source of the seed of where our nutrition come from. And so I started using my research and analysis and all the skill sets that I learned in the technology fields in Austin, Texas. And I said, let's see who owns the seed. And so as far as that, the why we are here is basically to understand how we can bring back a sense of empowerment and education to understand why we are basically, in a sense, living a life of quiet desperation when it comes to food and money. So I decided we're going to do something about sound money, sound health, sound communications for a sound future. So
Excellent. So Marty, how does Bitcoin fit into food intelligence?
That's a big question. For me personally, so back up, I'll just talk about like Bitcoin specifically and like how I got here. I was radicalized at 17. I'm 30. In fall of 2008, I was a senior in high school. I was 17, taking an elective economics class, and the world was going to shit. The financial system was collapsing, and I was lucky to have a teacher. I went to an all-guys school. He was like, gentlemen, this is really screwed up. You should go figure out like why this is screwed up when you go to college. One thing we did in that class was go over the TARP bill, and I think that specifically is what radicalized me at 17, just reading the TARP bill as a 17-year-old. I mean, like, the country's going to shit, the financial system's collapsing, and this is what the people who are tasked with saving us are quabbling about. And so at a young age, I was like, this is really messed up. So I went to college, studied economics, and figured out how the monetary system worked. I worked at a managed futures fund, which trades commodities. We trade a lot of wheat, corn, but other commodities that we traded were currencies, and part of that was learning about central banks and how they manipulate monetary systems. And so in college, I was like, oh, this is how they do it. And then while I was learning and working, I discovered Bitcoin in like 2013, and immediately for me, it was like, oh, this is the solution to this. So I think what I found was the problem with the monetary system was that it's any type of complex system. I think I discovered early on, my early 20s, was systems are complex, especially economies, food systems, monetary systems, and the big problem that I recognized with the monetary system specifically was you had a centralized authority trying to control a complex system that should be emergent and grassroots, and that is the crux of the problem of the monetary system. The financial system, you have centralized entities trying to micromanage complex systems. It just doesn't work. This is not how complex systems work. And so once you discover that with money, with Bitcoin, then you start seeing it all over the place. And food is one of those systems where you see it. You have centralized processing plants, and you have centralized FDA food pyramids, and you have central authorities telling you how a complex system like your health and nutrition should work. And so once I realized via Bitcoin and monetary systems that centralized authorities trying to control these complex systems is the root of the problem, you go and you look for that elsewhere. And for me, I think that's they don't like us talking about this.
Hey, it's doing good.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a Styx song right now.
Yeah, so for me, I guess, how did I get to food, like recognizing food? It was using the heuristic that centralized entities trying to control complex systems doesn't work, and that's obviously happening in the monetary system and with the food system as well.
Fantastic. So, Jason, I love to hear the term first-generation farmer. I'm in a similar boat, and that is zero offense to second, third, fourth, fifth. I mean, this country was built on multi-generational farming. But just like the federales have a grip on our economic and monetary policy, they've had a long-standing grip on agricultural policy and education, all the way up to the big state universities. This is something I've seen when you start talking about regenerative agriculture and putting more back into the soil than you take out. If you don't do that, over time you don't have any soil left anymore. So, Jason, I'd love to hear you weigh in. So we've got Marty talking about, what Bitcoin means to food intelligence. What are you seeing in terms of your role in being here today as a first-generational rancher?
Well, the thing with being a first-generational rancher is you have no preconceived notions. You have no, well, this is how Dad did it, how Granddad did it, so it's really easy to break the narrative. And so your mind is completely open to new and innovative things, whether it is practices, whether it is markets, whether it is approach to day-to-day jobs and tasks, and being open to young people coming on and seeing it through their eyes and innovating through their level of excitement. That's one thing that I love doing, is I love bringing new people on and say, this is how we do it, or this is how we've been doing it. What do you think? How do you think you should do it? Whereas the old timers are like, this is how we do it. We've been doing this for 100 years, and it's worked. It may take all day, but this is how we do it. Whereas for me, having none of those preconceived notions about any of that, I put it to the kids. It's the same thing in no matter what management job I've been in. Those young innovators, and you look at a lot of the guys and gals in this room, you listen to their level of intensity and intellect is an unmined resource that nobody utilizes just because they're stuck in a rut. They're stuck in the habits of the way that they've done it forever. Whereas for me, I want to learn more and how to improve all of the processes that I do. I mean, there's agriculture deep, deep, deep in our roots. You know, my family came from Germany over and farmed in Nebraska for generations and then moved to Colorado. My maternal grandfather he orange pilled me in regenerative farming when I was a kid, because he did it the way that his dad had done it in the San Luis Valley as far as observational science. He didn't need a soil analysis. He didn't need forage analysis. He paid attention to the ground, to the grass, cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, whatever. He watched them, and that's how he knew how to change his management practices. So that's where I'm getting back to, using observational science. I don't necessarily need technology. I just have to have boots on the ground. And that's what I preach to everybody that comes out and works with us, is this is how you become a steward of the land again, which we had done for generations, whether it was hunter-gatherers paying attention to the movement of the cattle, whether it was, you know, the hunter-gatherers, what roots to dig up, all of those things, but you have to be in it, and your boots have to be on the ground, your eyes have to be open, all of your senses have to be engaged to be able to get back to where we need to get for land management.
I love it. So the thing that I take away from that, and I'm going to circle back to Slim to tie this all together, but what I feel like we're really doing here today is tying tradition and technology together, right? You bring the best of the past forward with the best of the innovations of the future. Bitcoin represents that. As a rancher, and I know we have a lot of ranchers here, people don't think about like electric fence as being technology or some of this lightweight portability stuff that we've been able to develop in the last, couple, even decades, thinking that's major technology. Everyone, this is major technology. Well, if you're a rancher, you know exactly what I'm talking about with portable, lightweight, stored charge energy energizers. Don't burn the forest down. But Slim, maybe you can speak up in terms of tying it all together between the technology from a rancher standpoint and the technology from a currency standpoint, and then we'll maybe try and wrap this up and move into into coal.
Well, one thing that I saw coming from growing up small town Texas, half of my life being in Austin, Texas with technology, and of course being introduced into Bitcoin, what I saw was there was a form of decentralized thinking that's involved with being a farmer rancher, and of course being somebody that's in the Bitcoin ethos understanding, trying to live that Bitcoin standard lifestyle. You have the farmer rancher over here that have been doing it for hundreds of years in this country, and they do it very well. They leverage a form of decentralized way of thought, and they basically have a form of decentralized community-based system, just like my grandfather did. He had a two-party line phone system. At the end of the harvest, everybody knew that Grandpa Jones was going to have beef, hog, this type of produce. Everybody helped each other out, and then whenever they needed to have a barn raising, everybody from the community came in and they raised that barn. Well, by knowing that and looking at how Bitcoiners basically have the same thought process, they're innovating in ways the general public does not understand. Every Bitcoiner that I've ever met reminds me of a rancher. And so when I started saying I need to provide this solution of market access of education and understanding, and we have to bridge that gap with something called the Beef Initiative, what we're going to do is we're going to let these two sides of the coin, let's say the Bitcoin and the beef coin, join together and start working together to innovate. I know innovation. I was part of it in the startup days in technology. I see what's happening within beef, within generational farming and ranching, within our monetary systems, within our food intelligence. There's something about to happen here in the United States, and it's going to go global. People are going to start understanding that this decentralized way of thinking is going to be very powerful for them, and they don't have to ask permission. These guys right here do not ask for permission when they get up in the morning at 3:30 in the morning and they have to go repair a fence, or whenever the water board calls them and say you can irrigate. There's no permission asking there. They know what they have to do. It's a form of intentional living that has a sense of agency. And for us to innovate in this country anymore, we have to rely on decentralized thinking and decentralized action that basically comes from a localized community-based understanding. A barn raised, we'll give you an example. My grandfather came from a place called Lotney, Texas. It's out on the Great Plains. It's Llano Estacado. It is, it's a fascinating place. There's a lot of people that live kind of sparsely out there. Well, in the days of let's say during the Great Depression, he needed a hay barn, right? So he didn't have the skill set to do the full hay barn. What he had is he had a small community of people that he could call on, and they knew that they were going to be fed. They knew that they were going to have each other's back. And within the end of that weekend, starting on a Saturday morning, Sunday, they had a barn. And so this is something that has been lost. Everybody can go hit their Google today and say barn raising. Well, we're going to have a new definition, and it's going to be in 2022, and it's going to be about our food. It's going to be about our monetary systems. It's going to be about our communication systems. We are doing a new form of barn raising.
Yeah, and Bitcoin takes that to the digital world where you have essentially people distributed all throughout the planet doing a digital barn raise, building up this protocol and giving people access to it. And
touch on that, Marty. I want people to understand what I just said. My grandfather had a node system, a network node system built up. And this is where Bitcoin, a lot of people don't understand how Bitcoin, the Lightning Network, is starting to operate and be innovated in that direction.
yeah, so again, Bitcoin's an emergent system that is built by individuals. And so when, the proverbial barn raise in the digital world that's happening is people, when the way Bitcoin works is people download rules on their computer essentially and say, all right, here's the rules of Bitcoin that I respect. If you want to download these rules, here they are. You can download them. It's distributed. It's open source. Anybody can download them, and people from all around the world can see the rules and basically suggest, hey, I think we should tweak this. We can be more efficient here. We can add functionality here. And you have a global conversation, a barn raise, a debate, a conversation. All right, is this good for the protocol overall? Is this good for the individuals using it? And you have debates, and slowly over time, if things are valid and worth building on that digital barn, they get added. And then from the node architecture, again, it's a network run by individuals. The people downloading the code and the rules on their computer are basically the arbiters of the network, the people that dictate the rules. It's not a centralized authority saying, here are the rules that you have to follow. It's a bunch of individuals around the world saying, here's the rules that I follow, and if you want to propagate a transaction through my node, you must be following these rules. If you're not, it's getting rejected.
This is the stuff that gets me so fired up. So everybody's here because they're super curious, and I don't know a thing about Bitcoin. I'm like, so thank you for that, Marty. I want to go through the whole panel real quick, like 30 seconds. Like, what's the thing that you're most excited about being here today and just sharing with this group and bringing this group of people together? Let's go there next. So, Jason, I'll start with you on the end. What are you most excited about today?
So number one, it's networking, right? Everybody knows that when you're doing a direct-to-consumer business and it's based in education, it's all about connections. And that's the thing for me is that just completely gets me out of bed in the morning is number one, helping people learn how to fix all the problems that conventional ag has done to their soil. Also help them with their health as far as, direct-to-market, know your rancher. That's my hashtag, know your rancher, because that's where it comes back to. We got to get out of the rut of buying food from the big packers who are all internationally owned and get back to knowing our ranchers and also being those ranchers, regenerating our soil. And then the strength and the intentionality of Bitcoin is sound money and sound value, and getting that out to our farmers and ranchers to help them see just how important that is and how you can fix so many things that they struggle with as far as their relationships with the conventional banking system. So that's really what has me super jazzed.
Slim, what's got you super jacked, man?
Well, this has moved pretty fast, but today seems maybe daunting for people. It might be intimidating to people. Don't let it be. Just soak this up and just kind of hear the touch points. We're not trying to solve everything today. Everything's going to be solved with proof of work, taking these steps forward. The Beef Initiative will be an educational source. We're going to have formal education for the rancher. We're going to have formal education for the Bitcoiner. This has all come together, and this is why we're meeting here today. It's like, don't be intimidated. Have an open mind, and see how it fits in with your lifestyle and how you can take that pivot in a different direction. It's not solving this. This is not a black and white issue. We're bringing a lot of understanding first. We're going to discuss a lot of whys, and basically we're going to be able to make this education. It's hard to be educated in Bitcoin. It's hard to be educated in the beef industry or the animal protein industry. Let's all kind of take a step back and just let it soak in and know that it's coming from a sense of empowerment and a sense of truth and honesty. So open your minds up and really be a sponge today, and it'll really benefit your life.
Marty?
No, for me, what excites me most is this reminds me of something that's happened in Bitcoin over the last 6 years, probably specifically, or 7 years. It started in New York, a meetup called BitDevs, where people would meet in person, and you'd have an in-person meetup where people could exchange ideas, and then that idea spread from New York to all across the world. We have one in Austin now, there's meetups in Houston, and there's Bitcoin meetups all throughout the world, and I do think meeting up in person and exchanging ideas, shaking hands, exchanging ideas, has a profound effect. We do organize in the digital world, but there is a lot of benefit to meeting in person and seeing somebody eye to eye, seeing inflection. And I think it has helped Bitcoin get to where it is today, where it's a national conversation. It's an issue that's talked about in DC and globally every day now. And I think what excites me most about today is like this could be the beginning of something similar from the food side of things, where you start a conversation here, you start one in Colorado, you start one in Florida, and then suddenly you'll see Slim's not at every meetup. You have individuals running their own meetups, and that gets this issue onto the national stage as well.
Fantastic. Well, I'm just going to echo and reiterate quickly what Slim said. Everybody soak it up today. I can tell you personally, this is overwhelming. A lot of this stuff is just, drinking from a fire hose. But I want to thank you three for being up here and being here today and getting us kicked off. And I want to thank everybody here for making the trip. And this is going to be fun. I'm handing it over to you, Slim, and our next speaker.